Good morning and welcome to Arise News Now. I'm Asha Tanner in London. It's Friday the 2nd of August and our top story at this hour. The results of the Zimbabwean general election haven't even been formally declared yet, but incumbent President Robert Mugabe says it was a landslide victory for his ZANU-PF party. The alleged victory would secure another 5 years in power for the 89-year-old, but his longtime rival Morgan Tsvangirai claims once again the vote was rigged. He's now expected to mount a legal challenge. Arise News' Jerome Evans reports.
The official results from Zimbabwe's election haven't been announced, but the claims of fraud have already started. Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai.
Our conclusion has been that this has been a huge farce. The credibility of this election has been marred by administrative and legal violations. It is a sham election that does not reflect the will of the people.
It was a sentiment echoed by election monitor Irene Peterson, who says observers reported that in urban areas where support for Tsvangirai is typically higher than for incumbent Robert Mugabe, thousands were turned away at the polls.
Of the 2013 harmonized elections is seriously compromised by a systematic effort to disenfranchise urban voters up to 1 million voters.
Mugabe's team is saying that they've won by a landslide. Locals, however, are more cautious.
What I'm hearing and other rumors are, it seems it's a 50-50.
All of us were just waiting for the results. That's the main thing. That's where everyone is worrying about. We are worrying for the results only.
For many here, the memory of the violence that marred the 2008 election looms large. On Thursday, as a possible protective measure, riot police were dispatched to Tsvangirai's headquarters.
And that wasn't Jerome Evans reporting, but Deborah Gambara. In Beirut, an investigation is underway after a rocket targeted a military base. So far, no group has said it carried out the attack. Julie Noche reports.
2 rockets landed in Baabda, east of Beirut, late on Thursday, close to a military compound and Lebanon's presidential palace, security sources said. No one was hurt in the incident, and it's not clear who fired the rockets. The incident marks the second time in 2 months that rockets have been fired in the area, amid heightened sectarian tension in Lebanon over the civil war in neighboring Syria. Sunni Muslims in Lebanon mostly support the Syrian rebels fighting to topple President Bashar al-Assad. Fighters from Lebanon's Shiite Muslim group, Hezbollah, have fought inside Syria in support of Assad's forces against the rebels.
The White House has hit back at Russia's decision to grant the American surveillance whistleblower Edward Snowden asylum. It marks a new low in the fractious relationship between the US and Russia. Arise News' Will Took reports.
The White House said on Thursday it's deeply disappointed in Russia's decision to grant temporary asylum to American fugitive Edward Snowden. The former intelligence contractor, seen here in a video from the Guardian newspaper, slipped out of a Moscow airport on Thursday with asylum papers, despite US requests to extradite him home to face espionage charges.
We are extremely disappointed that the Russian government would take this step despite our very clear and lawful requests in public and in private to have Mr. Snowden expelled to the United States to face the charges against him. Mr. Snowden is not a whistleblower.
But on the streets of New York, reaction to Snowden's asylum was mixed.
Well, if he was telling the truth, I think he needs a safe place to be.
I think it shows Russia's true colors. I think it's too bad that that happened.
I guess they give him asylum because he can give them the secrets that America has, which is, of course, going to be adversarial for us.
High-level talks between Russia and the US scheduled for next week in Washington are now in doubt. And President Obama may decide to boycott a Moscow summit this autumn. Will Took, Arise News.
The Cleveland bus driver who abducted and repeatedly raped 3 women has been sentenced to life in prison plus 1,000 years. One of his victims has said she's been through 11 years in hell. Catherine Jackson reports.
Nobody should ever have to go through what I went through.
Michelle Knight, the woman held for the longest time in captivity and repeatedly sexually assaulted by Cleveland kidnapper Ariel Castro, testifies at his sentencing hearing on Thursday.
I spent 11 years in hell. Now your hell is just beginning. I will overcome all this that happened, but you will face hell for eternity.
Cuyahoga County Judge Michael Russo sentences Castro to life in prison plus 1,000 years with no parole for abducting, raping, and holding captive 3 women and murder for forcing one of the women to abort her pregnancy. In a final statement, the former school bus driver tells the court he is a sick man suffering from sexual addiction.
I'm not a monster. I did not prey on these women. I just acted on my sexual instincts because of my sexual addiction. And God is my witness. I never beat these women like they're trying to say that I did. I never tortured them.
Prosecutors presented graphic evidence at the hearing, including a replica of the home where they say Castro imprisoned the women and photos showing chains, boarded-up windows, and locks. 32-year-old Knight, 27-year-old Amanda Berry, and 23-year-old Gina De Jesus all went missing in Cleveland between 2002 and 2004. They were discovered in May after neighbors heard Berry's cries for help from Castro's home. Castro pleaded guilty last week to hundreds of criminal charges to avoid the possibility of the death penalty. The sentence ensures he will never come out of prison.
In Cairo, an inside look at life in the protest camp outside the Araba Mosque reveals an unbroken commitment to stay until demands are met, as well as the strain the presence of protesters has put on the neighborhood. Maria Mishani reports.
Barricades and checkpoints control the entrance to Rabaa al-Adawiyya, the area around a mosque where supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi have taken up residence since the end of June. Here, they have been beyond the control of authorities. But police are now threatening to dismantle the sit-in, a threat that these pro-Morsi activists reject.
We insist on staying in our place here for our freedom, to condemn the military coup, to protest against the dictatorial regime.
During the day, some sell signs bearing the image of the fallen president. Others look for ways to stay cool in the Cairo summer heat. By late afternoon, before breaking their Ramadan fast, cooks busy themselves with preparing to feed the troops.
There is rice every day, meat or chicken. We can stay another year. It's not a problem for us.
But their presence does not build them favor with nearby residents, many of whom deplore the nuisances caused by the sit-in.
They do not clean up behind themselves. They do their business in the entrances of buildings, garages, gardens, and around the camp. The situation is very bad and irritates people.
Memories are still fresh with the recent violence that led to the death of 82 people. They are determined to stay until the end. At night, the faithful, galvanized by prayer, are on their guard.
In Soviet days, people queued up to buy foreign goods, but Moscow's vast GUM shopping arcade, which turns 120 this year, is now a luxury emporium that plays on Soviet nostalgia. Robert Leslie reports.
This year, Moscow's GUM, one of Europe's oldest department stores, marks its 120th anniversary. It's been trading since the 19th century, and during the Soviet era, huge queues for imported clothes and cosmetics formed inside. Today, it's become a hub for the world's most deluxe brands.
Given that GUM is situated on the country's main sightseeing spot and has unique architecture and important historic value, it's automatically the tourist spot number 2. Don't forget that we're in Russia, and when the weather is bad, it becomes number 1.
The Soviet Union's gone, but the gallery retains the spirit of the 1950s to attract more visitors. In Gastronom number 1, GUM's Soviet-style food store, everything from staff outfits to interiors is reminiscent of the past.
We are keeping the Soviet traditions. For example, here you can buy birch sap, a traditional Soviet beverage. But we also have new products from other countries: cheese, charcuterie, ham.
Overlooking the famous Red Square, the facade of the department store is nearly 250 meters long. A revolutionary construction for its time, it was built in 1893 by Russian architect Alexander Pomerantsev. In the 30s, Stalin outlawed commerce in the galleries and made them living quarters for low-ranking officials. But just 50 days after the dictator's death, GUM was reopened to the public as the USSR's #1 department store.
GUM reflected all major events in Russian history, starting with the technical progress of the late 19th century, World War I, Revolution, the Great Terror of the 1930s.
Nowadays, GUM hosts 400 boutiques, cafes and a cinema. 15 million people visit every year, and building on its eventful past, the management are confident of increasing that number in the future.
Montreal's First Peoples Festival showcases the region's Native American community, featuring everything from special concerts to traditional cuisine. Virginie Salmon reports.
At this market in Montreal, 28-year-old chef Antonin Mousseau is looking for the right ingredients. He's responsible for the menu that will be served at the city's First Peoples Festival, which celebrates Native American culture. While these plants, herbs and vegetables may be unidentifiable to the untrained eye, Antonin knows exactly what he needs.
This is what I reckon gives authenticity to Native American cooking. Going and finding ingredients that people aren't used to eating, and which are foraged for, like in most Native American traditions.
Back at his restaurant, the ingredients come together. Using the flowers of wild carrots, Antonin is making a traditional Native American stew known as sagamite, with a modern twist.
So, we've got the fish, trout, which makes up an integral part of the American Indian diet. Green beans are always used as part of what we call the Three Sisters, which are the three vegetables in which American Indian cuisine is based: courgettes, maize and green beans.
From cuisine through to cinema and the visual arts, the idea of Montreal's First Peoples Festival is to celebrate Native American identity. The festival's director says it's a way to show that this culture is full of creativity, despite the challenges it faces.
Progress is extremely slow, especially when you take into account what's needed. This is a very young population, and there are needs when it comes to housing, health and education that are far from being met.
Even with his culinary creations, Antonin says it's difficult to get the locals here in Quebec to take an interest in Native American culture.
The work will take a long time because of all of the uninformed cliches about Native Americans, which we've had to fight against for years. Because I think you could say that there used to be a stigma around being a Native American, and around being proud of being so, whether it was through culture, or cuisine, or whatever.
Canada's First Peoples make up just 4% of the country's population, but for the duration of the festival at least, the Inuit, Cree and Mohawk tribes will be at the centre of Montreal's cultural life.
And don't forget, you can contact us online anytime. We're at arise.tv, Facebook/Arise TV. We're also on Twitter at Arise TV. You can also tune in on YouTube. Arise News Channel will have more continuing.